You're listening to the Parents of Hardworking Teens podcast, episode 51, where we're going to talk about the question no exam has ever asked. So why talk about a question your teen will never be asked? Because I see so many students still trying to answer it. I'm Katie Jones, and with over 15 years in education as an award-winning high school teacher, international external examiner, and as a study coach, I've helped thousands of students skyrocket their results and confidence. And this podcast is where I share all my insights, tactics, and tips with you, the parent, so you can help your hardworking teen get happy, smart, and successful in their study, and have you both enjoy the journey along the way. This is the Parents of Hardworking Teens podcast. Hello, very important parents. Welcome to episode 51. I am so happy to be recording this for you today because I am now really just off the back of the Next Level live training event, and more specifically, off the back of what turned out to be a little bit of a recovery week for me. Because I had an interesting little moment in the evening and kind of the day after running that event, which was a week or so ago now, where I had the feeling that is so similar to how I remember feeling as a student. That mixture of relief mixed with exhaustion and elation that I haven't really had for a little while. It really just reminded me of that same feeling that you get as a student when you're at the end of a block of exams or finals, you know, that last GCSE exam or the last exam of my degree. Because I knew I was putting a lot into that event in terms of research and time and energy, and that there was a ton of brand new and high-level content and concepts and detail, but I didn't really realize just how full-on and important it had come to be to me and to the students until afterwards. It felt like my brain really needed to decompress a little bit, and I hadn't realized just how much of my mental energy it had been taking up in the weeks leading up to it. And I mention that word important because I think some of the weight of importance that I gave to it and still give to it has come from knowing that it isn't just students who struggle with hitting the top criteria and understanding the top criteria in extended responses. I know so many teachers who also struggle with the vagueness of not so much the questions, but the vagueness of the mark schemes and the criteria and the wording of them. And I know how many students and how much students really want to be able to figure these things out, but I also know that even the teachers aren't always able to really help them do it confidently. And that is not a dig at any teachers. I have said many times before that I didn't know this stuff before I became an examiner. And I know firsthand and from speaking to so many teachers that they aren't always 100% clear on what the descriptors actually truly mean or require in terms of things like what makes something appropriate versus what makes it well chosen. You know, where is the cutoff? Where is the line? Or they kind of know it when they see it. I think this happens a lot. They know it when they see it, and that is one thing. But trying to train or teach students on how to do it for themselves is another. And it's just not really happening, which is why months ago, I decided to try my best to make it happen. And that's what happened in the Next Level event. I can tell you a few hours before the event, this will make every student and a lot of people feel better. In the hours before the event, I was reviewing the slides and going over my content, and I realized I was really starting to feel pretty nervous. And although I do always get, those usual nerves, a little bit of stress in the lead up to any sort of live event, like running a webinar or being on an interview, it had been a while since I had felt that nervous. So afterwards, I really felt this big release of pressure along with a nice little bit of elation when you know you've done something big and it's done well or it's gone well, like an interview or like a performance, because I was really pleased with what was in there and how I delivered it. And I'd already gotten some fantastic interaction on that live event and feedback during the workshop and in the days afterwards. I sent out a survey to all of the participants. So for this podcast, I want to share the underlying point that everything in that event and everything that I'm sharing at the moment around exams is based upon. There is one sentence that I believe is proof that more facts, more knowledge, more information are not what's required to hit top criteria and improve exam performance. Because that event was entitled Hit the Top Criteria in Extended Responses. But even when the questions sound big or vague or general, like sometimes those extended response or essay questions do, and it might be one of those ones where teachers say, there's no right or wrong answer, as long as you explain your answer or support it. And I used to hate those as a student. I used to hate hearing that as a student. It made things feel more overwhelming and more unfigure-outable rather than, oh, this is great. I did not have that. I still do feel a little bit like that when it comes to those questions. But I do get that there's a lot more to that now and what's really going on there now. So even when your team gets that sort of question or they're faced with those sorts of questions, I want them to know and I want you to know that there is a specific focus to that question. And therefore, there is also a systematic way to tackle it. And there will be specific things the market is looking for in their response. And it is not just more facts, knowledge, information. Now, quick announcement here. I'm going to be deep diving into all things exams, revision, dissecting questions on the spot in timed conditions in an exam, understanding how they're going to be marked and therefore what to write in that moment in my special Exams Parent webinar. It is happening next Tuesday evening, the 30th of May. Now, you can register for free right now. The registration is open. It's at www.greytransformation.com/exams. So go there to save your seat and join me on the webinar to discover how exams really work if they are not just about more information and regurgitating and memorizing facts, and therefore how your team can boost their results with less of the stress and a lot more confidence. And this episode is a kind of perfect intro for that webinar because I've already decided to title this episode Asked No Exam Question Ever. Because sometimes I record the episode and then come up with a title for it. And sometimes, just from my planning or ideas on what I want to talk about, I know exactly what I want to title an episode. And this one was definitely the latter, knowing from the moment I started to think about it what I wanted to title it. Because you have heard me say time and again that more marks does not mean just writing more stuff. But how do we know that that is true? How do we know that exams are not just testing your teen's subject knowledge or that learning more and more of that subject content isn't going to mean better performance in exams? It's because no exam question or essay or assignment for that matter ever said, write down everything you know about X, whatever that topic is. In fact, not even an oral assessment just says, talk to me about X. So this is how we know that just putting in more facts and information is not necessarily going to mean more marks. Now, yes, sometimes your teen might need more content. They might need more factual information as part of their answer. But for extended responses, that is never all that they need. But this is the trap that so many students fall into. In fact, in the topic and focus system that I train students in for dissecting essay questions and really for most extended responses, but particularly for essays, I actually have them identify what I specifically call topic traps. This is where students can be tempted to start rambling on about a topic or giving lots of information, but not actually answering the question. And identifying those potential traps is an important step in that system. Because if you are not aware of them, if you haven't shone a spotlight on those potential traps, then you are more likely to fall into them. And to be clear, I am talking here about formal assessment, in particular exams. So yes, a teacher might set up something like a starter activity for a lesson. I know I definitely have, where they ask students to write down everything they know about a topic, maybe before they start or just to see where they're at. Or maybe for a revision activity to see how much they can remember and where the gaps are. So classroom activities might do that, but exams, I can assure you, won't. Now, the lower mark questions might simply be knowledge or understanding level questions where they do need facts and information, but let's face it, there are so few marks there that they clearly aren't asking to know everything. It's the higher mark questions that I really want to get into here, and they won't just want more information. They won't want 20 pieces of information or 20 facts to get 20 marks. They're going to want some information, but it needs to then have something more done with it. It needs to be critiqued or processed or angled in some way in order to be responding at a higher level. So here's why no exam or assignment or essay or report ever asks your teen to write everything they know about X. And it's not because it would perhaps require a 25-page answer booklet for some students or 17 hours of exam time for them to really get everything down. It's because the answer to that question, write everything you know about whatever the topic is purely operating at the describe and explain levels of response. And those are at the two lowest levels of cognition, of Bloom's taxonomy. Remember and understand. So they could state lots of facts, and state is a remember level of command, and they can explain how something works or why it is the way it is or how it came to be, explain being an understand level of command, but exams, and in particular those high mark, big extended response questions in exams, are not wanting your teen to operate at those two lowest levels, at the describe or understand levels. They do not just want stats, facts, and info. Now, like I said, that will likely be part of it. It's not that they aren't required at all. They will need to show that they know definitions or what certain things are or how they work. But that alone is not going to be enough for the top criteria, and it's not where the top marks lie. And in the next level event, I actually led a warm-up, as I called it, where students dissected a 6-mark extended response mark scheme. So not the question, the mark scheme. And the criteria were all describe and explain up to 3 marks. So this was just a 6-mark question, not a 20 or 25 mark or even a 15-mark question. This was just a 6-mark question. It was our warm-up. And we looked at the mark scheme, and the criteria did have describe and explaining them, but only up to 3 marks because it was an analysis level question. And to get 1 mark, the student had to provide some relevant information. 2 marks, they had to describe the interactions between the 2 sources that were provided. And for 3 marks, they had to explain the interactions. So that meant that any student who just responded in their answer by describing or explaining throughout was stuck at 3 marks no matter what. No matter how much information they put in their answer, no matter how much they wrote, no matter how knowledgeable they were on that topic or what was being asked of them, they were stuck at half marks if they didn't actually analyze. And that means that if your teen isn't 100%, or let's be realistic for a second, let's just say 90% confident in how to go from explain to analyze and how to really write at that level on what is required, especially as we know that it isn't just about giving more information or writing more, then getting this sorted will make a huge difference to them. They really need to be skilled in identifying and understanding and responding to all command words at all levels. So if they're not, and they are in years 9 to 12 or 10 to 13, especially in those senior years, get them into the 10WGT ASAP. Seriously. Because the higher mark questions will always be pitched at the apply, analyze, and evaluate level commands. And doing more and more describing or stating or explaining does not equal applying. It's not like you can write 4 describing things and that kind of equals applying or analyzing or evaluating. They are different skills and they produce or require different answers, sometimes dramatically or completely different answers. And I know that sometimes can be tricky to imagine, that just changing the command or a key focus of a question can mean totally different answers are needed, even though the same topic is being asked about. So I thought I would share one with you here, something fresh, because I can't resist this sort of stuff and any excuse to go and find some real life examples and start looking into them and explaining them and dissecting them. So I figured it would be best to do this for a more content-heavy subject where students do feel like they've got to learn a lot of information and facts. So I went and downloaded the Biology HSC 2022 exam paper. And I basically went through it to find the question with the highest marks allocated. Now, actually, for this bio paper, for an individual question, the highest mark I could find was a 7-mark question. So actually not that much. It did have questions in there that it said were worth 15 marks, but then they were actually subdivided into smaller, 3 marks or 4-mark questions. So the 7-marker was the actual highest marked question I could find, and it was on the topic of genetics. So, oh my goodness, for a start, could you imagine if an exam question really did say, write everything you know about genetics? That would be a bit of a nightmare. So, as you've guessed, it didn't say that. It gave actually a table of percentages of a population with a particular allele. Now, remember, you don't ever need to know anything about the topic to be able to dissect a question. So stick with me. And if you caught last week's episode, you will also know the 6 elements of exam technique, and that in this case, because they were given a table, the element of using any resource provided means that they will need to specifically reference data from that table in their answer. So that's the first clue that we are not just going to be stating info. They are not just going to be writing all they know about the topic. They'll be having to use and refer to that table explicitly. So I'm going to put the link to this particular past paper in the show notes for this episode so that you can go check it out if you really want to and see exactly what that question said. But the question actually said, explain how mutation, natural selection, genetic drift, and gene flow could have led to these differences in the gene pools of populations with differing ancestry. Whew, there is a lot in that question. Let me tell you, I honestly thought about just going and finding a different paper when I read that, because I was like, this is going to be tough to read out on a podcast. But I actually really always want to keep things very real and not just pick and choose, because of course, students don't get to do that in exams, do they? So I was like, no, I'm going to stick with this. And it is going to be my job to make this clear on a podcast. If I can't make this clear just by wording it on a podcast, then I'm not explaining it well enough. And I'm not proving to you how this can work and be strategic and simple for your teen as well. So that question will require the student to know what each of those 4 genetic processes are, and yes, be able to explain them. But most importantly here, apply them to the statistics in the data table, to use their knowledge to explain how each of those processes could have resulted in the percentages in the data table. They need to describe and explain the processes and apply them to those stats, to that particular scenario. And given that this is only 7 marks, I am saying only, given how meaty that question is, they also need to be discerning and selective about just how much explanation and detail they are giving in that answer, because they've got to cover 4 processes and there are only 7 marks. So getting focused and succinct is definitely also going to be an important skill here. In fact, possibly the most important skill here is going to be figuring out not how to wow the marker with all of their genetics knowledge, but instead figuring out what will be the most important descriptive or explanatory information that applies to this given scenario. And I will bring this together by saying that hopefully this is good news in terms of education being preparation for life on a wider scale. Because just like I spoke about on the artificial intelligence, the AI episode that I shared a few weeks ago, We don't want to be prepping your teen to just be able to memorize facts and information. We have the internet and computers for that. We want to develop those high-level skills of application and analysis and evaluation and creation to be the skills that they have and can use to go after higher level and more interesting careers and pathways and be skilled at those things in life. So they're not just becoming skilled at regurgitating facts and information, but knowing what to do with that information so that it becomes useful and applicable. And yes, that is harder to do. That's the point. It is harder. Those skills get more marks and are higher up the cognitive levels. And so those are perhaps good reasons to be successful in exams and academically, and therefore be successful in life, good reasons to learn these skills. Because the skills of analysis or skills of application are exactly that. They are skills, and skills can be learned. They are not a talent we are either born with or we're not. So if you would like to dive deeper on this, get more skills and proven strategies, then come join me at the Exams Parent webinar Tuesday, 30th of May at 7:30 p.m. AEST. Please check your time zone to finally suss out how exams are really written and marked and how to help your teen leverage this insider knowledge and information to their advantage. And I should say that this is information that I'm totally, absolutely allowed to share. It is all out there on exam board websites and education publications, but most people just don't really know to go look for it and probably don't have the time or, I guess, some of the education training to really be able to distill it and be able to use it. But I have worked in it and used and literally live by it day in, day out. So I am distilling and sharing it with you and getting down to the most important points, the critical skills, the most effective strategies that can literally make a difference to your teen and their results immediately. In fact, last time I shared this information, I was going back and having a look, and I had an email from a parent who said her teenage daughter literally made a huge transformation the very next day in her exams. In fact, I'll literally read you an excerpt, a little part of that email. This mum said, last week she had COVID and missed her year 11 exams. Yesterday she sat chemistry, so she was doing catch up, and she said she was sitting on an A grade average but struggles in exams. And the teacher marked it straight away because it was a catch up exam, and she failed her exam with 48%. She said, last night we did your webinar, and afterwards she looked into a few of the command words. We talked about how to unpack the questions. And today she sat the biology exam, for which she was averaging a B. The teacher marked it straight away again, and she got 77% an A. How's that for an instant transformation? Those are her words, not mine. But she's obviously been listening to me for a little while to use those words. So if you would like to know more about those skills and strategies, then register for the webinar. It's totally free. You can register at www.greattransformation.com/exams. Please also feel free to share that link with any friends or family who you think could also benefit from this. Have a brilliant rest of your week. I will see you back here next week on the podcast. Take care. Bye. Hey, if you're a repeat listener, I would be incredibly grateful if you take a moment to rate and review the podcast. I'm not big on asking for these things, but I'm on a mission to help as many students and their parents as possible, and having more ratings and reviews really does help with that. It takes less than a minute to do, and it will make me love you lots if you do.